with the virus and stuff like that. Were you symptomatic, asymptomatic? How'd that all go down for you? Was it scary?
Yeah, it was pretty scary. What happened was I started to get sick, like as if I was having a cold.
Right.
And my temperature went up to 101, then
Oh,
102,
wow.
and then I lost my taste. That's what scared the shit out of me because
Really?
I would taste all these things that had like spicy or peanut butter. Peanut butter was my trigger. So if I had peanut butter or a Reese's peanut
Uh-huh.
butter cup and I couldn't taste it, that said, okay, something's wrong. So I went to the emergency room, and when I went into the emergency room, luckily I didn't have it as bad as some people who get put on those ventilators. So they
Right.
didn't do any of that to me. They just took my heart, blood, and all of that. And after a couple hours, they sent me home and said, treat this like you would treat the flu.
Mm.
So I quarantined for 2 weeks. I filled my house with food, but I coughed my brains out every day for 2 weeks, just
Wow.
like the most incredible coughs. 2 weeks later, I started to feel okay, and I could taste that peanut butter. And I'm like, I did it.
Yeah.
And
I
that's
mean,
it.
I can't even imagine that. I mean, the crazy thing is too is, I mean, you're always wearing a mask. You're always I mean, social media, I follow you all the time. You're not screwing around and just, taking it lightly. So that's the scary part too, is even if you are following the rules, shit's still going to creep up on you. So it's like, I mean, that was case in point right there. I was like, oh no, like I didn't go out for at least 4 or 5 days after I found out about that. I go, oh my gosh, here's someone who's, not being a jackass and saying, oh, my rights and all that BS. He's doing what you're supposed to do, and it's still stuck up on him. But well,
Yeah.
glad you're feeling better.
Yeah. I feel like I'm 100%. And
Wow.
now I'm hoping that we could all get back to
Right.
doing some performing because, we're still shut down. That's for
Mhm.
sure.
Yeah. And I know last time we talked, performing again wasn't even a thing, but you actually did. You did do a couple things. I think it was down in what, Florida? You had a couple gigs out there.
Florida.
How interesting was
Florida's
that?
open.
A little different this time around, huh?
Yeah, because you get new material.
Yeah.
Not too much about the pandemic, but just about, eating too much, gaining weight,
Yeah.
and wondering what the heck is the future is going to hold. Being a single guy during a pandemic's not that much fun.
No, it's kind of
Got to
hard.
have a girl's got to have a blood test before you go out to dinner, and it's not even for a venereal disease anymore. It's for a COVID.
That's for a normal date.
Yeah.
It's
So,
crazy.
uh,
Oh, man.
but it was great to be on stage, and I've been on many stages since then
Mhm.
with the social distancing. Then
Right.
that's what stinks because instead of having 1,500 people, you have 100 people, and I mean,
Yeah.
and no cruise ships. There's no chances of going out on the
Oh
ships.
God, no. It's funny you brought that up. I saw a commercial yesterday for that. I'm like, no, like they're doing deals and packages for cruises. I'm like, I don't think that's gonna happen I mean, I don't think a lot of people are gonna be going on those anytime soon.
I'd go.
Oh, I
I'm
mean,
ready.
yeah, I think we'd all go, but I think it's like too soon,
I have the whole
trust me,
ship
I
to
want to get the
myself.
hell out of here. I want to get the hell out of here so bad, but it's like, come on.
Where exactly are you?
Right now, so I am at home in my room. That's where I am. I got all my stuff on the wall, all my posters from working at the Arcada, including yours. I'm in my little cave. I call it my little cave. It's my little home spot. For you, where are you? You're not in LA this time around, right? You're on the East Coast.
This is my house in New Jersey.
Yeah.
This is my office. The studio's downstairs. So just like you, I collect baseball bats, but for
Oh, I'm a
different
nerd.
reasons.
I'm a nerd.
Oh, I collect everything. I got
Yeah.
a collection of stuff from back in the day, from my G.I. Joe dolls to
That's awesome.
casinos that are no longer existing.
Mm-hmm.
I actually just put my hands on this one. I'll show it to you because you're in Chicago, right?
Yes.
Okay, now a big movie star came out of Chicago. His name is Joe Montana.
Joe Montana. Yeah.
Joe
Big
and
Cubs
I are
fan.
friends, and he gave me this coin. I don't know if you could see it, but it
That's his
says Joe
star.
Yeah,
That's
it's a
awesome.
star from the Hollywood Boulevard.
Yeah.
And there's Joe. You
It's
see
funny. Yeah, I see that. It's a weird caricature of him.
Yeah, he gave me. Well, that's Joey Zaza from The Godfather 3.
Ah, okay. That's awesome.
They gave me the coin, and I keep it for good luck.
Yeah.
I'm going to send him an email today and tell him that I'm on your show.
Yeah, that's funny. You know what? He's a big baseball buff too. He loves the Cubs.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's big with baseball and stuff. I mean, since you kind of brought that up, I'll touch on that before I dive deep into some of the stuff that I wanted to talk about. Right out of the gates, you made note of the bats on the wall. Being from Jersey, being from that part of the country, growing up, Yankees or Mets or Red Sox, who was your team?
Oh, well, Yankees.
Yankees. Was it
And then the Mets.
pretty uniform in the household? Was it Yankees across the board?
Yeah, I'm from New Jersey. We're not that far from the football field. We're not that
Sure.
far from the baseball field. You got to go for the home team.
Yeah.
If you were to say Jets or Giants, I'd say Giants. If you were to
Yeah.
say Yankees or Mets, we'd say Yankees. But then Yankees, of course, is I don't know. Mets is almost makes you feel like you're more of a New Yorker to
Yeah.
me.
Hmm.
I
No.
don't I don't really know why, but that's not even the reason why I have baseball bats. My first album was called Vinny Get the Bat, and people would give me baseball bats. So in every corner of this house, there's a baseball bat.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Some from the Louisville Slugger Company, and some from my childhood. I have my high school baseball bats, my
Oh,
junior high
wow.
baseball bats, and the baseball bat your father gave you when he said, "Now that you have your driver's license, put the baseball bat in the front seat."
Yeah, self-defense.
Yeah,
That's funny.
protection.
There you go. That's great. No, yeah, I mean bats for me, I love collecting those, but a lot of gamies baseball, signed baseballs. I mean, and no matter how old I get, nothing will ever stop me from being that kid 3 hours before game time waiting outside Wrigley Field or 4 hours before game time waiting for that bus to roll off, hoping to get one person to stop and get a signature. I mean, that stuff will always live inside of me. And I think it's important to have stuff like that because once you let that go, it's like, what do you have? Like, what do you have that makes you happy? You know?
Yeah. Well, it's really funny. One of the only times I've been to Wrigley Field was when they had the Chicago Comedy Festival, and a bunch of the comedians went to go watch a game.
Mm,
And it was really cool to sit in the stands because the stands were so close
yeah.
to the buildings where people lived.
Right. Yeah.
It was so close. I'm like, these people hear this roar of the crowd
Yeah.
right in their backyard, but they didn't have to buy tickets. They're
Mm,
like watching the game from
on
their
the
own
roof.
balcony
Yeah.
and a barbecue. And I was with, at that time, Gabriel Iglesias
Oh,
before he
okay. Yeah. Yeah.
became
Funny guy.
Fluffy, and a bunch of guys who nobody even knew yet.
That's
It's a long
awesome.
time ago, man. That's got like be 15, 16 years ago.
Yeah, and some of being from the East Coast, like Jersey, I think the best way to put it would be almost like where the World Trade Center was and Ten House, the firehouse. That's how close it is. You had the firehouse on Waveland by Wrigley, and then 10 feet in front of the firehouse, Wrigley Field. I mean, everything is just right there. Yeah, it's great. Now, I do have to ask, when you started doing the shows again, that was post COVID, right? Right after you had the virus, you started to go out and do shows again, or was that before you got it?
Before.
Before. Okay. What was the dynamic like down there, though? Was there still a sense of angst
After
or
3 months
anxious?
of no shows, my
Yeah,
first show back was in Florida. And instead of having 300 people, they only had 100.
100. Yeah.
But I was so happy just to be on stage that I
Sure.
couldn't
Yeah.
stop laughing at my own jokes. And then I did another show here in New Jersey. And I think that's where I got the COVID because it
Mm.
was about 500 people and it was outdoors. And they
Oh,
figured, well, we're
snap.
outdoors, so everybody could just do what they
Right.
want. So people would shake my hand and ask for an autograph, and we were hugging each other without any masks on. And I think that's what happened.
Yeah.
And then
That's
I had
crazy.
another show that I was going to do in Utah, and I didn't go because I didn't feel right. And
Oh,
that's when I went
no.
to the hospital.
And that's when everything kind of hit the fan. Well, you know what? You touched on a great point there. It's so hard, especially being from an Italian family like yourself and me working for an Italian guy like Mr. Onesti. It's almost second nature just talking to people. Hey, how's it? You going for the hug right away? You going for
Yeah.
the? I mean, and to be like, oh, like it's hard to do that. Like I went during the summer, I went to go to the Arcata to do a walkthrough to see where the renovations are because we're doing a whole bunch of stuff over there. And that was the first thing he went in for and I went in for. And then he goes, oh, we can't do this. I'm like, oh, like it was such a strange thing. Being, heavily, from an Italian family yourself, that's probably the hardest part.
Well, my father lives down the block, and every time we see each other, it's the first thing we go to
I
do, but
know.
we don't. In fact, my father's 84,
Hmm.
and yesterday he got his shot.
I saw that.
My
I
dad
mean,
went to get his shot, so I got
yeah,
to call him today, see how he's doing.
yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I saw that on Instagram.
Instagram.
Because you brought your father up, I have to ask. You guys have it seems like a very, very, very good relationship. You and your dad. What was so instrumental about his impact and his personality and fatherhood that made you who you are today?
Well, my parents
Along with
are
your mother,
not,
obviously.
yeah, my mom and my dad are not showbiz parents, so they're not in the business.
Hmm.
So when I was cutting my teeth as a teenager,
Sure.
I couldn't really rely on them to ask them about how do I do this.
Hmm.
You can ask them how to make sauce and you can ask them how to do construction, but asking them how to do stand up is not going to happen.
Right.
But basically, start by making fun of them. You're not really making fun of them, you're kind of playing homage to them.
Right.
This is the way they say, this is the way they talk,
Like
this is
Uncle
the way
Louie.
they are. Like Uncle Louie,
Yeah.
Uncle Tommy, my real
Right.
Uncle Tommy. That's how I started. I used to imitate just my uncle. That's all I
Uh,
ever said was my uncle, my uncle, my uncle. Uh, so anyway, and my parents, of course,
right.
and that's the way it develops. So to this day, yeah, I treat my father the best I know how as a good son.
Hmm.
I call him all the time. I mean, quite honestly, parents are so old school that they didn't change. So they become your children.
Right.
My father's like my kid. I used to do in a routine. I'm like, you can't eat that. You'll have to go right to bed,
Funny.
which is what they say to you when you were a kid.
Yeah. No, that's hilarious. You mentioned the construction business. You guys had a family construction business growing up too.
Still,
So you still have that. So family, everyone hands on in there. At what point did you kind of be like, you know what? Yeah, this is great, but I really wanna be an actor. What was the point for you where you made that decision, and how was that received given the fact that your parents, I mean, the hardworking parents, they're always out there day after day doing the grind. How was that received when you told them that?
well, I have two brothers. One's older, one's younger.
Right.
And they both worked in construction with my father's
Hmm.
company. So when I would show up for work, I was almost like an employee. I was never part of that team. So even in high school and in college, I showed up when I needed to show up. But if I didn't want to, I didn't. And they were never really mad at me. They were encouraging. It wasn't until I really moved to Los Angeles that's
Yeah.
when they were like, wow, he's really
Oh,
going for
he's doing
this.
it. This is actually
Yeah, he's
happening.
going to disappear.
Yeah. Did you really think you'd make that move? What was the hardest part coming from a heavily a huge family type of dynamic over in Jersey to LA? Was that a hard move for you?
Yeah, it's a real mind blower, boy, because you leave and everything you've ever known,
Ugh, yeah.
and you're going into a strange land. And Hollywood's tough.
Yeah.
The song that Sinatra sings, New York, New York, if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere. No,
No.
it's Los Angeles. If you can make it in Los Angeles, you can make it anywhere because everybody out there is nuts. They're from different parts of the world, and
Yeah.
everybody wants to be a star. The Uber driver, the cab driver, everybody got a script. The guy who works at the 7-Eleven, the guy who owns the 7-Eleven,
Yeah.
the guy who's homeless. Everybody wants to be a movie star. Pretty tough.
Yeah. Now you moved out there for that prospective possibility of acting, and comedy followed suit shortly thereafter, correct?
Yeah, I didn't go to California to be a stand-up. I went out
Right.
there because I thought I was going to be, work just in movies.
Hmm.
And I was, but not as much as I could as a stand-up because
Sure.
comedians have more avenues to go than film.
Right.
You have to wait. You have to audition. Maybe you'll get some. I have an audition this coming Monday for one line in a TV show. One
Really?
line
One line.
as a Southerner. I mean, come on.
How the hell are you gonna pull that off?
I could pull it off. I could do many different accents. The only reason why I got the audition is because they're going to film in New Jersey and I happen to be here.
Wow. That's
So,
crazy.
I got it down. I know exactly how to do my lines.
Yeah, there, there you go. You kind of just did
Yeah.
it Right then and there, you switched up on me. That's awesome. You know, the
Yeah,
funny thing is, you mentioned how you always would just focus on your uncle Tommy. Um, I think it's the truth. Like I said, Uncle Louie, the variety show, and they do that. They're doing the same thing as you kind of are, but as an Italian, you, I mean, there's your content right there. You have your own stand up solved because you have
yeah.
those family dynamics and family roles. Talk a little bit about the other personas that you put out, the cousin Michelle and cousin Mooney, and how those kind of evolved over the years.
I have a producer that I work with. Her name is Tatiana Bluchel.
Mm-hmm.
She produces my web series. She produces the Live from My Mother's Basement. She produces a lot of stuff that we do.
Right.
So her and her husband, Cody, who've been watching me for many years, they saw that I had the ability to change my voice, like I just did with the Southerner,
Uh-huh.
while I was on stage. And I did the Stone guy, Mooney, on stage, and
My
I did
favorite.
the girl on stage. I did Uncle Tommy on stage. I just never took it to the extreme.
Yeah.
So we went out and bought some wigs, and I made up a bunch of routines. And now the audience goes nuts. Now, I
Yeah.
haven't really done it live that much. Like if I came to Onesti's place, he'd probably fall on the floor if I threw that wig on and said, hey.
Yeah. Be a
But
little
I have
different.
the ability to do it. And now I'm kind of having fun with it.
It's
In
great.
fact, somebody wrote to me and said, would you consider doing a movie as Michelle?
Oh, geez, that's kind of long though. I mean, is that something that you think would even be possible to do something that long?
Oh, yeah.
Really? You could play in that role that long without getting to a certain point where you just
In a movie,
fall
yeah,
apart and
because,
laugh.
yeah, well, it's going to be funny.
Yeah,
I got
right.
cast in the movie, was supposed to start shooting in April,
Yeah.
and they're going to bring back the roller derby. And they want me to be the guy who owns the roller derby team. And the team is a bunch of girls,
Yeah.
and the girls roll around. If you remember roller derby, and they bump into each other, they
Mhm.
fight each other like WWE,
Right.
right? So then the guy saw me do Michelle and he goes, you could play you as the guy who owns the team, but what if Michelle was on the team? I'm like, let's do this.
Oh, so that's interesting. So you'd have two different
Two
personas.
roles. Yeah.
Wow. The
Like
makeup
Eddie
has to be
Murphy.
good in that one because if people who are good at watching movies could see, they'd snuff that out real quick. Wait, what? That's the owner, and that's
Yeah.
Michelle. That's
Yeah.
hilarious though. Now,
I've had
where's
some people write to Michelle and
yeah.
say, who are you? What's your name? And I'm like, it's me, you dummy.
Oh,
It's me.
that's great. I like your podcast a lot. I like what you do there. As a comedian, reaching out and interacting with the fans like you do on that show, what is the most important part about doing that for you? Because you're always, I mean, you're like Gary Vee in the sense that you're just a hog on social media. What is the most important thing about interacting with that community day in and day out like you do?
Well, I try to stay on it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to stay in the game with all the new podcasts out there and the people out there, but I'm just me.
Yeah.
I don't really lie. I don't go out of my way to talk about politics. I don't. I try not to offend anybody. I know what I
That's
like.
hard nowadays.
It really isn't, because if you just keep it about your own life,
Sure. Yeah.
how can anybody be offended?
Yeah.
I mean, I had so many people say to me one time, don't you think the Italian community might be a little offended by what you say? And I says, well, I could change my wording very easily. I could just say, instead of saying an Italian family, I could
Right.
say my family.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're going to be offended now? How could you be offended by what belongs to me? This is
Right.
my family.
Mm-hmm.
So most people say, well, yeah, I guess you're right. Who said anything about anybody else but me?
Yeah.
Can't be offended by me, by my life.
Mm-hmm. No, I got you on that. Now, when you're out in LA after the whole acting thing starts, you actually started as a sketch writer. I believe it was for Leno. Performer, yeah. From what I understand too, is there was you thought you were auditioning as a on-air talent or stand-up, but you were actually auditioning as a sketch writer, stuff
Yeah,
like
watch,
that.
I'll show you.
Yeah. Uh-oh, he's got something here. What do we see?
I auditioned for the Tonight Show to
Yes,
do stand-up,
correct.
but the guy I auditioned for cast sketch comedy. But he said, "You're such a great actor. You're so funny. Why don't you just come on the show,
Right,
you do some sketches, and maybe they'll let you do stand-up?" So I
right.
says, "All right." So I go on the show. Before you know it, I was on the show so many times. These are from my dressing room.
No way. Hold that
These
closer.
are
Let me see these.
these are the Tonight Show dressing
Look at
room.
that, guys. That's awesome.
Yeah. So I used to collect them year after year after year. What is my room? 2106. Um, so I made them coasters for drinks at the bar
Oh my gosh,
downstairs.
it's great.
See, they used my full name, Michael Marino.
Yes,
It never says Mike Marino. And so I got hundreds of them.
that's awesome. How
And you know
instrumental
what's really
was?
funny is I ended up doing my first stand-up routine on the Martin Short show,
Oh, okay.
and they give you a robe. I have it downstairs, the white robe. I don't know what it was for, but so I went back to the Tonight Show to do a sketch, and the stage manager was there, and she goes, "Hey, I saw you on Martin Short Friday night." And I said, "Yeah." And she goes, "Why don't you do stand-up with us?" I'm like, "I've been here for 3 years. Nobody gave me
Now
the
you're
spot."
asking me?
Yeah, but that's real shit.
That's awesome. That's incredible. How instrumental was that experience, and how important was Jay to you and your career?
Jay was actually always very, very nice to me.
Hmm.
And the casting director told me Jay would actually say, "Oh, I read the script for the sketch. Is Mike coming?
Oh, wow.
Or why don't you call Mike? Or Mike would be really good for this one." So I
Mhm.
started to get requested by him.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's
And
crazy.
there was this one, God, we did so many when I think about it. There was this one we did, though, and I did an improv on the show.
Hmm.
And I don't think Jay was expecting it. So when you go live, it's do or die.
Right. Yeah, that's
He
it. You
can't
can't take
stop.
that. You can't edit it.
So I did this whole big thing, and he started cracking up, and I could see that he was laughing. And when the bit was over, and he goes, "We'll be right back after this commercial break. How about that, Mike Marino, folks?" And I was like, "Wow, thank you."
Hey, yeah, that's great. That's awesome. Now, was that your first, big spot comedy shot for you? I mean, I know you started at when you were what, early 20s, around there. That's when
Yeah.
you started to do it, little places. But was that your first large scale exposure as what you would call, obviously, then comedian? It's kind of weird. The reason I say it that way is because some people don't like to be called. If it's weird, I talked to a comedian. Some people don't like to be called comedian. Some people don't like to be called certain things. So the reason I preface it that way is, do you think that was the first large scale exposure for you as someone trying to be, or trying to get into the stand up
Yeah,
comedy
because I
world?
mean, it technically it is the Tonight Show,
Yeah.
and that's before social media.
Millions of people.
Yeah, when you're not talking about YouTube, you're not
Right.
talking about Instagram, you're talking about the Tonight Show.
Hmm.
And just to get on the show. And plus I met every celebrity you can think of, because there you are in the green
Exactly.
room waiting to go on stage.
Hmm.
So I always say the word entertainer. I'm an
That's exactly
entertainer.
what yep.
I can act, I can dance, I
Perfect. Yep.
can't sing, I play instruments, I could do stand-up, I could do sketch comedy. So what am I? I'm an
Hmm.
entertainer.
There you go.
I could be a comedian. I am a comedian.
Right.
I could do stand-up.
But
It
I'm
makes me
also
a comic.
this and that.
Yeah. So whatever. Got to put it all together.
Absolutely. Now, the Comedy Store. When was your first time you cut your teeth over there? How intimidating was that experience?
Very intimidating, because I got passed by the owner, Mitzi Shore, back in the day when she was alive, and the Comedy Store was a little bit different.
Sure.
But then again, it's like a college, and there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of comedians going through.
Right.
And in fact, I got memorabilia from the Comedy Store. I got hats and matches
That's
and
awesome.
buttons. They used to have a yearbook, but I'm pretty sure it was 95,
Oh, wow.
1995. And what a legacy,
Yeah.
especially then. Hopefully this COVID will be over and that place will open up again, because this is horrible.
Yeah, it is horrible. They just lost someone too. They just lost, I think, the organist.
You know
He,
that?
yeah, I do know that. I was came on my timeline the other day from Jeff Garlin and Dean Del Rey. He talked about that. But do you have any fond memories of? Did you have a relationship with him, or did you have any
Yeah.
interactions over the years with him?
Yeah.
How
Jeff
special was he?
Scott.
Yeah, obviously I've never met him. I've never seen him, but now that I have you here and someone who's worked with him or talked with him, what was so special about him?
So it's a really, really sad thing because for
Absolutely.
the past 6 months, for some reason or other,
Hmm.
he and I were writing to each
Oh,
other. Hold on.
you're good.
Wow, two sneezes and
I
they
didn't
didn't
even
come
hear
out.
it.
No, it didn't come out. It's cold here in New Jersey.
Yeah.
Um, he and I were writing to get to each other because he was the historian
Hmm.
and he had memorabilia, but I had memorabilia
Ah.
that he had never seen. So I was sending him pictures.
Mm.
Some of the memorabilia is the paper lineup that they write for you on the back porch before you go on stage, and
Oh,
it'll tell you
okay.
who's performing that night. So I have, and I'm going to be writing a book about my life. I have the schedules from 95, 96, 97, and I was sending them to him to say, hey, there's your name down the bottom. But there was also names like me, Andrew Dice Clay,
Wow.
Joe Rogan, Joe Diaz. This is way before Dean Del Rey and all those guys actually went to the Comedy
Sure. Yeah.
Store. Because I believe Dean, who's a friend of mine, came from music.
Hmm.
He was a rock and roller.
Yeah. He was AC/DC tribute bands and rock bands, stuff like that.
Yes, he's got an unbelievable voice,
Oh
and
God.
he's a really, really great guy. Um, but I mean, lineups of guys that aren't even alive anymore. And I was sending it to Jeff, and he was writing me back, oh, where'd you get that? I can't believe you have that. We had a show called Night of a Thousand Guidos, and it was in the big room, and just an amazing. I mean, I have all of it. It's in the other room. Like I said, I'm going to do a little documentary. I do have
That's awesome.
Comedy Store memorabilia, like matches,
Yeah.
because I'm a collector. I like doing it.
Oh yeah. I save stuff that I probably doesn't need to be saved, but I save it. Like I have a closet filled with newspapers from all the sports championships and stuff. Oh, wow, look at that.
1995. Look at
That's
the
when you got
font.
that.
That's how old this is.
Oh my gosh.
Isn't that cool?
That's pretty
There's the Laugh
awesome.
Factory.
There you go. That's another thing. You've done a lot of work over there. I mean, a lot of the YouTube content that I've been looking at and stuff. I mean, you have that illustrious backdrop of the Laugh Factory. What are those moments like? Because I've never been to either the store, the Laugh Factory. I've never been to any one of those other than Zany's, obviously, because I really started to get into um, comedy specials and comedy heavily during the pandemic. I've always watched comedies, but I've been really immersing myself into it now because what else am I going to do? I can't go anywhere really. So, what are those experiences like being in a position like that where they're filming? Like you have, professional recordings of your stand up. Are those experiences different than that of just your normal live gig or live show on a tour? And how do you prepare differently for those?
Well, when I was doing everything I was doing as a comedian at the Comedy Store,
Mm-hmm.
nobody was filming any of this stuff.
Oh,
Most of this stuff got filmed when social media came around.
okay.
That's what
So
happened.
early 2000s.
Yes. And at the Comedy Store at that time, when I was there with my crew of guys,
Mm-hmm.
it looked like the club was going to close
Oh,
because it wasn't
snap.
jumping off anymore.
Right.
So I went over to the Laugh Factory. At that time, you had to be part of one of the clubs, either Improv, Laugh Factory, or Comedy Store. It was very difficult to be part of all three without
Mm-hmm.
somebody getting angry with you. So when I went over to the Laugh Factory, I had it better in my life. And I started working with the owner as a manager, and I was always getting Thursday, Friday, Saturday spots.
Mm-hmm.
When they opened up another club in Long Beach, in Vegas, San Diego, Reno,
Mm-hmm.
I got to be part of all of that.
Oh, wow.
So the cameras are in the ceiling. So some nights when you're performing, you don't even know that they're filming. And when they have the clips and the clips are really good, they put it on their YouTube channel, you get fans like crazy.
Yeah.
So I think it was about a week ago, they took another one of my clips about me talking about being in Walmart. I think it got 250,000 views in
That's
one
great.
day.
Yeah. No, it's a funny video. I saw that the other day with the Costco
Yeah.
one.
And
But
then the one I was doing about, running for president and stuff like that, which they're putting back on the internet now, is hilarious.
it
And when the
is.
people are laughing like that, I mean, they're screaming,
No, it's hilarious.
which only makes you do better.
Yeah, true. No, and I love that bit. That's what I wanted to get on too. Is when did the idea of having that segment or that part of your stand up come into the picture? The Make America Italian again. When did that kind of start to get incorporated into your shows? Was it 2015, 2016ish, right around there?
Well, I started talking about being Italian and my Italian family and what we're like in the 90s at the Comedy Store. And I said what my family would do what my family would be like if.
Yeah.
So it was when Saddam Hussein was actually doing crazy stuff that I came up with it. And then, of course, Osama bin Laden. And I think when Osama bin Laden and they had the thing about going to find him is when I developed Two Italians Would Be Back in 24 Hours.
That blew up.
And that found it. 16 million.
Yeah.
So that turned into more about, well, what if I was the president? Right. What if I did it? What if my family? What if I was the first Italian president? So I'd say around 2010, people started to go, that's funny. But it was 2016 when we started filming the web series, because I think that's when Trump started saying, make America great again. So we said, make America Italian again.
Right.
And I mean, shirts, banners, hats, tags, it became a whole big thing. And now, oddly enough, I'm going to do it again.
Yeah, I saw the shirts already. 2024.
2024.
Yeah, it's funny that you do that skit too, because do you ever have people who ask you, go, "Hey, Mike, in all seriousness, what would you do, or would you exercise a possibility?" I mean, have you ever put into any serious thought about that, or was this always just been just for shits and giggles?
Well, I mean, I don't know how I would ever get into politics. I know people go crazy when I say what I say, because basically sometimes they're like, yeah, you know what? You're right. Even if it's not within the joke of taking people out mafia style.
With a bat.
Because I did do a speech and I felt like saying, can't we just have a president who knows what it's like to be poor? Because if we did, he might just be like, wow, wait a minute, I get this to do that? Are you crazy? You all make too much money.
Yeah.
You can't run the country.
Right.
You don't know what it's like to not earn a little bit of money and struggle. How could you possibly know what's on the minds of the masses?
Right.
Nobody lives like this. They showed yesterday a documentary on what it's like to live in the White House. And they showed the band, the military band, and all the entertainment. You know how much money they're spending?
Oh, it's pathetic.
So a guy like me would go in there and go, ho, 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 man, this ain't necessary. Get a DJ. I don't need that much food. Plus, look, I'm not married and I have no kids.
Yeah, so no first
you don't have to worry about that.
There you go. That's the one thing that, since you brought that up, kind of on a lighter note, less serious note, is do you think there'd ever be a possibility that you'd have a president who, let's say, isn't married? I mean, that'd be historic in itself.
I don't know. And then if you were the president and you were single, what are you going to do? You can't get a date. We're going to go on Facebook.
Yeah, we're going to do it.
I'm the president. You want to come out with me?
Oh, that's a great pickup line.
Sounds like a routine waiting to happen.
Yeah,
I came up with a routine last night because somebody asked me, why don't I get a dog during the pandemic? And I says, because I keep thinking I'm going to get ready to go back on tour. And then what would I do with the dog? But so many people are getting dogs, right? So I'm thinking, Maybe I'll get a service dog. Not that I have any problems, but I'd love to just say, go make me something to eat. Could you imagine the dog coming back? I'm like, what kind of cook are you? You suck.
Yeah.
Right? And then I'll pee on the floor and I go ahead, pick that up.
Yeah. No, that's funny.
It'll be a good routine.
Like that.
What's that? It's a service dog. He just brought me my breakfast.
That's funny. Now, when you were younger, you weren't always in the heart of Jersey City too, right? You did end up making a move from Jersey City to the suburbs. How monumental of a shift was that for you? Being in an area that literally, I mean, your whole family is. I've saw in interviews in the past. I mean, you can walk out your front door and you have everybody on your mom's side or dad's side, figuratively speaking, within feet. Was that a big move for you guys?
Yeah, because, back in that time, the city started to get, let's say, rough.
Better off, yeah.
Crime, not like crime today, though. Crime like you get mugged and beat up, but that's it. Nobody got killed. So you move out of the neighborhood and you move into the suburbs. Now, I'm here in the house I grew up in. This is in Scotch Plains, New Jersey. This is the suburbs. But everybody's pretty much nice to each other. There's really not that much crime. You can get in your car and go to a store and leave your car unlocked. You can leave your house unlocked. So it's a lot safer and it's nicer. It's a great place to grow up. And they'll take care of crime around here real quick.
Well, yeah. And it's just take them with a bat, right?
Yeah.
No.
Whereas in the city was great, but your neighborhood could be in one block and you know everybody. And then you're in the building. My grandmother owned the building we grew up in. It was 12 units and everybody in that building was related.
Wow.
So nobody locked their doors except for the outside door. Now it's a shithole.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Well, after it became like that, then it became, yuppie. The yuppie thing took over. So some of those buildings are worth millions.
Wow. Well, and that's the thing that happened in Chicago too, in Wrigleyville. They call it Yuppieville now because everyone's mid-20s and suit and ties. I mean, it's just a weird area now. It's not the whole neighborhood has changed. So
well, we say yuppie, but it's not yuppie anymore. Now it's millennial.
Millennial, right. They're not too far off from each other.
Well, the yuppies were kind of a little bit more intelligent to me. I think these millennials make...
so I'm definitely not a yuppie.
Whatever. I don't know. I don't even know what I am. I think I'm Generation X.
Generation X. Who comes up with these, though? Like, I don't understand the labeling for these.
I don't know.
It's crazy. So this is the house. This is the house where you do your live from my mother's basement.
Yeah. I'm in my office.
That's awesome. That's great. I love that. Absolutely love that. The naming for that too, by the way. I know we talked about that earlier, but what was so important about the branding and naming of that show for you and doing it in that location? Very sentimental spot for you, because I know in previous interviews I've heard you say that when you're growing up, you don't get to eat upstairs. You're a kid. You're eating. That's your home. That's your life. All those walls that encompass that bottom floor is what made you who you are. Was that a huge reason as to why you made that the spot?
For some odd reason, everybody in this neighborhood, and there was a lot of Italian people in this neighborhood, still are. You grew up in the basement. You played with your toys in the basement, and mommy cooked at the stove while she was doing laundry in the basement. And the kitchen upstairs was for, I don't know, when nice people came over, the good people, the good china, the good table. So, and we did on some Sundays. And now I'm actually in the same house. So I remodeled everything to look like it did back in the day. But of course, those people are no longer alive. So live from my mother's basement, it just
took off,
fell off my tongue. It's really what my mother enjoyed the most. So everything is the same, only remodeled. There is a full service bar down there, which is an antique bar from the 40s.
Wow.
We've got all the alcohol down there. There's a sink down there. There's food down there, stove. You could do anything. It's like an apartment.
Yeah. That's great.
I do use the upstairs kitchen now myself. In fact, I don't cook downstairs unless it's a holiday.
So you're a
And we
good
haven't
person
done
now.
that.
You've transitioned.
Yeah, I'm an adult now. I'm the older guy now.
That's awesome.
And sure do miss the way it used to be, but I'm glad that I have what I have. And now the show's picking up some sponsors, and hopefully when I come to the Arcada, we'll sell tickets a lot faster.
Yeah, I think we will next time around. I just think in general we will, because I mean, there's so many people who are longing just to have that interaction and live entertainment feel. And I think you could probably speak to this too. I don't think we really appreciate or understand how much music really means to just life in general. Because if you take music out of the equation, there's no music, and you try to get through the whole pandemic with no music, it's not possible. Or comedy. I think we really underappreciated the gift that music is and the people who create the music over this past year.
Yeah, well, there's nothing better than getting together with your friends and family to go watch a live performance. The thunder of the crowd, the energy, the memory you create.
Yeah, it's priceless. Absolutely priceless.
I mean, this is great. We get to do this, thank God. But this would be so much more
in the flesh and human.
Fun. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and you know what? You touched on that too, because I have a lot of people who said, well, is it a Zoom one? I said, yeah, we're kind of in a pandemic. Well, I don't want. I'm like, why is that? Because I've never done many of them in person. Obviously, pre-pandemic, every now and then I would do an interview when I worked with USA Basketball, Kevin Durant, DeMar DeRozan. I got to interview them, and that was in the flesh. But there's a different dynamic to an in the flesh one, because you can, I don't know what it is. It's weird, but there's a different feel to it. So I feel like there's more comfort, and there's more, you could pull more out of it as opposed to something over this.
Yeah.
I mean, would you attest to that too? Because there's a lot of comedians who have tried this live stream stand-up stuff during the pandemic, but it just doesn't work for them.
Yeah, no, we feed off the thunder of the crowd.
Yeah, correct.
A crowd can actually control where a comedian goes, because if I start a subject and I feel like it's not working, I'll go someplace else.
Yep.
But if I feel like they're going with it, I'll stretch it, I'll add to it, I'll improvise it,
Yeah, that's great. Now, you touched on something that I found interesting right at the start, was a book. You said you were working on writing a book about your life story, your experiences growing up. When did that come to the picture, and what's the timetable on a publication goes for that?
I don't know, because what I did was, when I first went to California, I was 23 years old.
Oh, wow.
And at that time, no social media and no such thing as a cell phone. So you had to make a phone call from your house at a thing they called long distance, and it was very expensive. So I used to write to my mother all the time. And I would say, hey, Mom, take a look at this. Hey, Mom, I'm waiting tables. Hey, Mom, I'm going to be on the Tonight Show. Here's what the dressing room doorknob looks like. So I would mail it to my mother. I mailed it. I mailed her scripts, auditions, pictures, the memorabilia from the Comedy Store. Here's the lineup. Mom, look, I'm working with this guy. His name is Joe Rogan. And I would send them to my mother. Well, she never threw anything out. So there's like 15 years of letters in this house. So I'm thinking I'm going to just take a picture of every single letter, explain it, and then I'm going to say letters to my mom. And that's the name of the book.
Wow. That's
something
great.
Like that.
When did that idea come to fruition? Was it just
well, when I came home, I found everything.
Yeah. Wow.
And during the pandemic, I'm spending all this time in the house.
That's great.
And I have it. Dude, my mother kept everything.
That's how my mom is. She keeps
I have my confirmation. I have my baby teeth, my baby hair, little slippers, everything.
Those are pretty, that's a little different thing to say. Baby teeth?
Wow. Baby teeth.
That's my first
just
yours or all the kids?
All of us.
Okay, I see. It'd be a little weird if it was just you.
No, I got everything. And I framed a lot of stuff. And I actually have my great-grandmother's passport from Italy to the United States.
So like the passport that she used to moved to America?
Yeah.
Oh, that's remarkable.
It's really odd. It looks like a driver's license with
Really?
an old lady on it.
That's it. Just a old lady photo and driver's
There are
license.
photographs in this house from before my mother was born,
Uh-huh.
from her family. And you know when you get those black and white photographs and
Right.
they look like they're really mad at everybody, and they take a piece of paper, they
Yeah.
take the newspaper, they put it on their arm, and they look at you. Nah.
Right. Right. Right.
They're all over this house, and everything is written in Italian.
Really.
So I'm calling aunts and uncles. What is this? What is this? What is this?
That's funny. Funny. I
It's
know.
great.
Yeah. That's hilarious. I never thought about that. Maybe there's a reason why I save so much stuff. Maybe I have a story to tell later on. I have no
We all
clue.
have a story to tell, and I think it's great. I mean, if I took you around this house, you'd be blown away. I'm blown away.
You're
I
still
can't
blown
believe
away,
it's
and you've
here.
lived there forever.
Yeah,
That's great. I love
yeah.
it. That's awesome. You touched on a point too, right before I asked you about the book. Um, you mentioned Rogan. You actually did you get to work with him too, Joe
Just
Rogan?
as stand-ups at the Comedy Store. That's it.
What was the stand up like early on? Because there's some comedians who said like they had a bad first impression of him, but then as time goes on, you learn to like the people. What was the first experience, the Rogan experience, like for you? And was his comedy and has his comedy evolved over the years? Or is he still the same person that you remember seeing just starting out?
Well, I was never an extremely close friend of Joe Rogan,
Okay,
but we all saw each other at the
right.
Comedy Store back at that time.
Hmm.
I used to book one-nighters. I never worked with him in that arena,
Sure,
but when Joe would come to the Comedy Store, he always was nice to everybody.
that's awesome.
He was pretty much on that show,
Fear Factor.
something radio.
Oh,
Now, he was on a TV series.
oh wow.
He didn't
Okay,
have a big role, but he was on a TV series. I forgot what it was called.
interesting.
And he did stand up like everybody else. He used to do this thing about animals in the jungle that I always thought was hilarious. And it was always nice to me. Hey, how you
Yeah.
doing? You could tell he was a Boston guy.
Thick accent.
Not really, but he had the East Coast thing going on.
Yeah.
Then, of course, he got that show where people would eat something,
Fear
do
Factor.
something. Fear Factor. Then he got Fear Factor.
And then from there,
And
it
he's-
was just
Yeah, he started to blow up more and more and more, but it was his podcast that took him where it went. And then, of
Right.
course, I mean, he's a genius
yeah.
on the mixed martial arts. I mean, he makes the show as far as I'm concerned. When he's commentating,
It is kind of funny.
Oh!
Yeah. There's a guy
Well-
out there who does a great job too, Bob Menery. He does these comedic he does play-by-play where he actually chops up his own commentary after a game, and I'll send you a couple links to him, and it's absolutely hilarious. It's so unfiltered. He's talking shit about players, making fun of them and stuff, but it sounds like he's actually in a broadcast booth. It's absolutely hilarious. But so Mike, we are getting closer.
I'll tell you this. I was in the room when Joe went on stage with Carlos Mencia.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, we were all there.
That's great.
You know what's really funny? At that time, it made you wonder if this was the right thing.
Really? Why so?
But now I've had people take my jokes and do it on the internet. And I feel like going, call Joe Rogan now, because that's bullshit. They should not do that.
No, that's great. Well, Mike, when you kind of look ahead and where we are right now, what is the plan or goal and schedule and timetable for you and your stand-up as far as scheduling goes, as we hopefully move forward to reopening and getting back to somewhat of a normalcy for live entertainers like yourself? Has there been any word or is there any timetable at this point for you guys?
Nobody knows anything.
It's still kind of just day
In
by day.
March, I could tell you I'm going to do a week at the Tropicana in Las Vegas.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I'm going back to the Count Basie Theater March 20 in Red Bank, New Jersey. March 27, I have another show here in New Jersey. The first week of March, I am going to go back to Los Angeles.
Wow. Okay.
What April's going to be like, I have no idea, but everything is at MikeMarino.net.
Yep.
And of course, my YouTube channel, Mike Marino Live, and everybody can see me on the air. So let's see what happens.
There we go. Well, Mike, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it. Tell Ron Nesty we got to do a show.
I will.